Hi guys, Twinkle here. So, all my findings have led me back to the same conclusion. The face. A lot of you guys know him originally as being the one called Distorted Mickey, or who I like to call the creepy one. Now, unfortunately, this little guy here, I actually don't know how big he's supposed to be. He is missing legs. Well, he appears randomly, like really rarely on night one, which of course he's KO'd me on, and he's KO'd me on the second night, and he's KO'd me on the third night. And every single time that has happened, there has been this annoying talking, which I've been told is Oswald. But it's happened every single time, and then he appears. I don't know why he turns up whenever the talking starts, but he does, and it's annoying. But he indeed, all the clues that Greg has left in his, in his articles suggest Astoria is indeed the face is the one that he came face to face with in that area where he and Lisa bolted instead of going in and finding Henry and just knocking this thing out of the way. The whole entire articles that I read from Greg's perspective and, from Lisa, I felt that I had to talk it through. For one, Henry is clearly an intern. Greg shows more concern over Henry rather than Lisa. That maybe they did find Henry. Maybe. I mean, Greg was clearly trying to say something, but he was like really panicked after seeing that with the human eyeballs at the end of the blood trail. That, again, I don't know if it was human blood or if it was their yellow blood, because, could have been any blood. But it's not a good sign for you to lose an intern, somebody who you're responsible for. Lisa clearly knew he was an intern, clearly knew he had no idea what he was doing. Yet she lets him wander off, and, he gets into trouble. Now, I had a funny feeling that either Greg did indeed find Henry's body, and, maybe they found Henry's body and he was bleeding, maybe. And then they see this thing and they just bolt and they left him there, not even to bother to check if he's alive or not. Maybe he was unconscious, but then they bolted after seeing that thing and they didn't dare go back down. Maybe that's what possibly happened to Henry. Maybe they did find him, but after seeing that thing with eyes, they might have run, leaving him with that. Possibly. Or they didn't find Henry and they just came face to face with that and that thing got to Henry first. But these things are suits. And clearly the face distorted is not a complete suit. He's missing legs. Now, there were images on the Wikipedia that would suggest he didn't originally have eyes. If that's the case, maybe distorted here, the face, maybe he's getting stuff to finish what Disney started, in a way. In other words, if he's missing something, he's looking for the parts that are missing from him to put himself back together again, so that way he can move around and be free to find, whatever the heck he wants to do or, find. Maybe he assumed that the eyes were his. I don't know, but it's kind of creepy. He's got human eyes, and the only way he's going to get them in there is either he did it himself or another member of the cast did it and put them in him. That's a human skull with like a costume stuck on top of it. But again, I don't know why it's so dark, because even if it's a human skull, you should be able to see past the black. You should be able to see some coloration. If it's like a skull or something, you'd see something in the eyes wouldn't stay. Oh, so just saying. Again, though, if you look inside Distorted's eyes here, you can clearly see that it looks to be someone is holding a torch. Now, I can't tell it. Perhaps it's Greg that's looking at him, or maybe it was Henry. Because there's no guarantee that these images that we are seeing here are actually from Jake's perspective. Maybe what we're seeing here is the last images possibly on the camera of Henry's. Again, this is indeed on a freaking table, and no, this isn't the same table that's in the office, because that table is like a darker color. This one's brown. It looks, I don't know what the heck this one is. Unless, of course, what we're looking at is actually us looking downwards, possibly. I don't know. But that coloring on this thing here, it's not the right shade on like the table in the office. It looks like a different area again, but I'm not sure which one. But I would assume it was the office to begin with. This possibly is a jump scare thing. But again, the ceiling is like way low down. But yeah. I don't know what to make of them. Or Greg. I don't even know if we should trust Greg to begin with. I mean, Greg lost an intern, and he sent someone in, regardless of the fact he already knows of the danger that is there. And instead of telling Jake beforehand that he wants us to possibly track down Henry, he doesn't mention Henry. In fact, he avoids talking about Henry in the very first night, and that has bugged me. He knows about Fortnite and Mickey. He warns us about him. But why does Lisa know more about Fortnite and Mickey than Greg? Lisa and Greg were there together. Why does Lisa know more about the suits than Greg does? Why does she know that Fortnite and Mickey can see? That, he can see a bit, but not as well, compared to what Greg said. Why does she know it can see a bit? Why does she know more about them? I'm getting suspicious. But, right, Greg, on night 1, Greg tells us about Fortnite and Mickey. He says that Fortnite and Mickey can't see, but he's got good hearing. Okay, that's understandable. That's technically backed up by the article. Yeah, that gets contradicted by Lisa in the following night. But during night 1, he mentions the intern, but he doesn't finish his sentence. I don't care. He clearly, in his articles, wants Jake to find Henry, but why did he not mention Henry? Why did he not tell Jake? Is it because he already knows what they're going to find? Did they abandon Henry there when he needed them? And no offense, if they're like part of this supernatural society thing, shouldn't they, be able to handle this type of thing? I mean, clearly this thing was smaller than them. Couldn't they have just knocked him over? Because, I mean, clearly he doesn't have teeth, and I honestly can't see him killing anybody. So probably strangling you. But I guess seeing human eyes, unless they were really fresh. And again, there was a fresh blood trail. What the heck happened? And what was Lisa doing? She said, "Oh, I let Henry wander off out of my view for a few minutes." Few minutes? What were you doing, woman? Why was Lisa left in charge of Henry? She clearly didn't like Henry that much, from what I could tell from her logs. At least, I could tell she was slightly annoyed with him. Getting fed up that he was leaving equipment around and stuff like that. And she said he left the camera in Pirate's Cavern. Maybe he left the camera in Pirate's Cavern and he wanders off because he wants to go back and get it. And that's how he ends up meeting whatever the hell killed him. Or, did something to him. Again, these are just ideas, thoughts, theories, and stuff. I will go back over them again, but I wanted to get them down now before I forget them, because this stuff is bugging me. I don't understand why. I mean, top priority. He's an intern. You're responsible for him. I know you just got scared because of something with human eyes, but the thing is, in your article, you were clearly going to say something, and I honestly thought he said one of his own. The blood trail led to one of our own. I honestly believe that's what he was going to say, but obviously it didn't make sense. It looks like he was going to say one of his own. Meaning Henry. Meaning he might have already found Henry dead, or he found him injured, or at least missing eyeballs, or something. But then, of course, this thing turns up and they just leave him. They abandon him there, making them no different than Disney with these suits, possibly. Because clearly they're nervous. Clearly they've known they've done something wrong. And Greg wants to make up for it. Lisa doesn't even seem to mention the intern once. Greg is the one that shows the most, like... What did he do? Did he grow up with Henry or something? Did they go to the same college? Were they, like, really close? Were they brothers or something? Or, you know, is Greg, like, really worried that their company, the thing they're in charge of, the SSA, is going to get closed down because, you know, negligence, the fact that somebody actually got killed? They actually trusted Lisa with Henry? Henry is an intern. He's curious. Lisa should have known that. Lisa should have been prepared. She said that, you know, she had to get on board because it's something supernatural. She was already, like, excited. She wasn't there to keep an eye on the intern. She was there to find anything weird. Although Lisa might sound like the more confident of the two with the way she talks and everything, and giving the most information, she definitely, compared to her logs, didn't sound that professional. She became professional afterwards with Jake. Because she learned her lesson. I mean, they were really just excited about finding anything supernatural, so she wasn't all that concerned about Henry. In fact, she just found him slightly of a nuisance from what I could gather or tell from the messages. And of course, there's the stuff that Greg was saying, that maybe an intern can mimic the curiosity of another intern. You want Jake to go in there without knowing the full purpose of your reasons behind it in hopes he's going to find Henry, or at least uncover the truth of what really happened because you're too scared to go in there yourself. Either that or, you know, somebody is obviously stopping you. I don't know what to make of Greg and Lisa. I honestly don't. I mean, the way they sounded, they did sound a bit concerned, I guess, but they were more worried for their, you know, about their work. I mean, this is probably their life work. It's about to all go up in flames. Henry. Put evidence. Did Henry have something on him? It's Henry's camera? Because Lisa seemed to get really annoyed by the camera, and I remember she said in one of her logs, she mentioned the camera. She said that she was really annoyed, and she said they had to go back because... And then again, Greg mentions about evidence, that they need to gather all their evidence up. So I'm guessing whatever's on the camera is what's important. Maybe what Greg wants to find is whatever Henry saw. And if Henry had a camera with him, maybe he caught what happened. Because they all had equipment with them, which means even Henry did. Oh my god, I could be wrong. And why is this thing called the face? Why are you called the face? You're definitely a face I don't want to see coming over the desk or under it. And there's also a room full of suits. And there have been other victims before. Suits. Come alive, they were hanging. We saw a picture of Negative Minnie hanging up, obviously facing the wrong way, in the character prep 1. Like, she was ready to be put on to something, ready to go on to whatever. Let's assume now that all the images we saw in TGsEE are actually all part of the same thing. That there are documentations of Henry or Greg or Lisa's, no events, but most likely they're Henry's. So what if the pictures are Henry's? Pictures. The picture we saw with Henry, there was an image of destroyed, and he's in a weird area, and he's coming towards someone, and there's yellow blood on the floor. That could be what Greg is referring to. That could have been the elevator where Greg was, because everything matched up. He said there was blood trail, and the blood trail was yellow. I remember it in the elevator, and it was distorted, and he was leaning up, and he clearly had blue eyes. Maybe that was Greg in the elevator. Maybe. I'm just saying, it's a possibility. Fred and Mickey was in the office. And there's character prep rooms with suits. That would be the white figures. The strange malls, that was them. Mickey won't move. What if he was watching the wrong Mickey? Oh, there's so many things. And he was watching Donald. And Donald looked at him. Sorry, the duck. But what's all this about the waters? You know, about the parasites and brain nicky things? What's that got to do with anything? I mean, obviously it was a cover-up and stuff. And you know that actually was a real thing at the place because apparently there was something in the water, and that's why the place closed down. In the real place, not obviously this one. And oddly enough, the story here is one of the few characters I always see leaning up, with his hand out like that. And he's crawling towards you like he's begging. He's pleading. One of these guys actually feel pain. Well, obviously not with Mickey. I mean, he shakes his head off so many times. I don't know what to make of it. But there's definitely something suspicious going on. I don't know. It's all to do with you, friend. You're one of the clues. But I don't know what it is yet. But we will find out soon enough. Yeah, guys, that was another episode of Treasure Island. I don't know what to call this one, but hey. What do you guys think of Greg and Lisa? And of Henry's fate? Yeah, guys, I will do like some videos like this and other videos where, you know, take a look at footage, do gameplay and stuff. But sometimes I do like just talk and like have a, you know, conversation and debate type thing. So these are kind of like my own like memoirs or like my own documentation in a sense. Me talking about something. Hopefully you found it quite interesting. Hopefully I gave you some ideas. If you didn't, well, I didn't. Anyway, guys, see you in the next video. Bye-bye.